Hello, the 31st here, how's it going? Today's video is going to be about legendary Pokemon. I'm answering the question of if and how there are multiple individuals of each legendary species. If you don't know what I mean by species, watch this video here, probably be in the description as well. Plus, I'm also going to be grouping all the legendary and mythical and whatever else there is Pokemon together, just under the banner of legendaries to make it easier to talk about. Now, there are some we obviously know there are definitely multiples of, but what about the others? I'm going to be going over the origins of some Pokemon. To be fair, there's quite a lot that we don't actually have official origins for. With all that said, let's get started with the video. Starting at the beginning. In the beginning, there was nothing. A pitch black abyss in which nothing existed. Nothing, that is, except for an egg. From this egg was born Arceus, the god of all people and Pokemon, and thus the story of the universe began. Having probably been created by the unknown, Arceus in turn set about creating the first 3 legendary Pokemon. The Creation Trio, Palkia, Dialga, and Giratina. All 4 of these Pokemon lived their lives in their own dimensions, separate from Earth. And for these, there will only be one of each per universe. I'm suggesting this because it makes sense with the idea of this god and demigod nature these Pokemon have, and the whole creation story, religious aspect. Plus, they live their lives isolated in their own worlds pretty much all the time. Right, now we're done with those, I'm going to start going on to the earthly legendaries. I'll start by splitting them up into legendaries with confirmed and unconfirmed multiple legendaries in each species. So, Pokemon that do have confirmed multiples. I guess we'll just go in order. So, starting with Articuno. This legendary bird has been sighted in the wild and has also been reportedly owned by the Battle Frontier brain, Noland. Mew, the ancestor of all Pokemon. A long time ago, on a planet not too dissimilar from our own, Arceus was responsible for the creation of Mew. A lot of Mew, in order to spread life across the world. Lugia. Lugia was formed by Arceus in the seas to be their guardian. As we know, this is the most famous example of a legendary species having more than one members. A mother and child Lugia were sighted together, as well as other Lugia that have been spotted around the world, most notably the Orange Islands. Celebi. Celebi was possibly made by Arceus and can be found protecting the forests of the world, such as Ilex Forest, and helping to keep the balance of nature. Celebi can travel through time, which makes its multiple sightings questionable. Latias and Latios. The Eon duo are 2 legendary Pokemon from Hoenn. They are the legendaries with the most confirmed members of their species. They are also the only legendary Pokemon who possess genders, and it's said that Arceus created them in order to give the world gender. Rayquaza. Formed in the ozone by Arceus, Rayquaza is an interesting example as one of the sightings is a shiny. Deoxys. Deoxys is an extraterrestrial Pokemon, an alien virus that mutated. Not being from Earth, its biology can be difficult to determine, but multiple Deoxys have been confirmed, each with its own unique gem at their core. Darkrai. This is the last of the confirmed legendary species with multiple individuals. One Darkrai was even once captured by a trainer called Tobias. This trainer also possessed a Latios. Then, as you can imagine, all the other species do not have confirmed multiple members. However, next we're going to assume that all counterpart legendaries have multiples, as this just makes sense, as if one counterpart has the ability to, then the other one should as well. This includes the remaining legendary birds, Zapdos and Moltres, who do have unconfirmed multiples. Ho-Oh is the counterpart to Lugia, should have multiples as well, possibly Groudon and Kyogre, although it's possible that Rayquaza being different to them, they don't. And Cresselia. So little's known about Cresselia that, well, we just don't know. It's widely assumed that the Poke-Earth and the Earth on which we live are about the same age. 4.5 billion years. That's an unimaginably long time for any Pokemon or any creature of any kind to have survived. The Creation Trio, any other god Pokemon that don't live on Earth, they kind of have an excuse, but Pokemon that were supposedly involved in the creation of the planet, such as Groudon, Kyogre, or Regigigas, were said to have survived all this time. Even if they were created by Arceus, it just seems like too long a time for any earthly creature to live. What I propose is that all earthly legendaries do actually have multiple members of their species. The only potential exceptions being the 3 beasts of Johto, Reshiram, Zekrom, and possibly Hoopa. The way I suggest that these legends, many of which only one of each was created to begin with, reproduced to allow for an expansion in their numbers, is a Pokemon I've already talked about, a Pokemon who's truly earned his title, Mew. Mew is only one of 2 Pokemon that can use the move Transform, the other being Ditto, a Pokemon almost exclusively used for breeding, and widely believed to be a failed and imperfect clone of Mew. We know thanks to Lugia that they must reproduce, and I ruled out asexual reproduction as a possible method for this because in our world, flatworms are the most complicated animals that can do it. Something as big as Lugia would simply be too complex. Just like Ditto, Mew should be capable of breeding with genderless Pokemon, which most legendaries are. Also, their egg groups are classified as undiscovered, which implies that researchers do believe they still actually have an egg group. The exceptions to this obviously being the Eon Duo and Manaphy and Phione, but more on those later. If Mew were to transform into genetically identical copies of the legendary Pokemon to breed with them, then their offspring would be genetically identical to the parent, as any mixing of genes would make no difference. This would continue for generations. The rate at which random mutations occur in large eukaryotic organisms are incredibly low. Plus, they have the possibility of being silent. This is why most genetic variation comes from recombination of genes by 2 genetically different parents. So these legendaries mating the way they do means they could remain almost completely unchanged, possibly hundreds of millions of years. Because of their genderlessness, I don't think that legends of the same species would be able to breed together. I guess in the end it kind of is asexual reproduction, isn't it? Additionally, as their lifespans are unknown, they could possibly only breed every 100 years or so, maybe even more. And factoring in their need to find a Mew in order to breed, which as time goes on will become rarer and rarer, it would explain why legendaries are so hard to find. Now going back over some points of interest. The 3 legendary beasts of Johto. If the legends are to be believed, these 3 were created merely 150 years ago by Ho-Oh. This may not be enough time for them to breed, however, we'll never know. The Eon Duo are supposedly the embodiments of gender, and were created by Arceus to bring gender into the world. These 2 actually having genders means it's possible they are actually able to breed with one another, and would explain why there's so many more of them than any other legendary. Then there's Manaphy and Phione. These are the only 2 legendaries that can actually breed in the games. You can breed them with Ditto, and you'll always get a Phione. This means they can definitely breed with Mew, and it's possible that as Mew is a perfect version of Ditto, they could produce Manaphy as well, and not just Phione. Reshiram and Zekrom were made by separating Kyurem, so maybe there's more Kyurem about, although if the Reshiram and Zekrom did have a chance to breed with Mew, maybe they could be more of those. And lastly, artificial Pokemon. Legends created by people. Well, there are definitely confirmed versions of these, but because they were made by people, I didn't really include them. As if they were made by people, then people have a way of making more than just one. Well, that was a long video, wasn't it? Nothing too complicated though, so hope everyone understood and enjoyed. Wow, there was like no sights in this video. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed, please show your support with a like, subscribe if you haven't already. There'll be more in the future. We'll be right back. This video was like 9 minutes of nothing.